Hello, everyone. Welcome, as every Sunday, to this self knowledge course. Today, we are having lecture number 26 of the set of 50 lectures, and today we will be talking about the world of relationships. In this lecture, we are going to discover how to improve our relationships, the relationship with our physical body, with our environment, with all the external world, and with our inner being, so we can achieve that true happiness. So this is going to be a very interesting lecture, and let's start by saying that the objectives of this lecture are to know the three types of relationships that human beings have, what their functions are, what state they are in. So we can see that we commonly have trouble to relate with people, with the environment, with money, with our physical body, with our unconsciousness, and we are going to see how we can fix these relationships and to get to the optimal state in these relationships. Also, today we are going to learn to carry out something that is called the ICE file. That is something very interesting. And we are going to see this practice at the end of the explanation of this interesting lecture. So let's start by saying that all the relationships that we establish have a purpose. And due to our ignorance, these relationships are usually deteriorated. And all relationships, and we are going to see this in detail, must be established for a learning process. Human beings have three types of relationships: the relationship with our physical body, as I was explaining, the relationship with the external world, and the relationship with ourselves, with our unconsciousness. The physical body, or the relationship with the physical body, is important, but actually we only worry about our physical body when we get sick. And actually, we don't even know the causes of our diseases. And the relationship with the external world, that relationship with everything that exists in the environment from the physical body out, we also tend to have troubles with this relationship because we don't understand the real purpose of interacting with the outside world. And for that reason, we have all kinds of problems. And regarding the relationship with ourselves, actually, this is the most forgotten one. And this is because we don't know ourselves. We don't know our inner world. Therefore, the connection with our divine part is blocked. So let's start by talking about the relationship with the physical body. Let's go deeper in this topic. The relationship with the physical body, well, what is the relationship with this planetary body. You know, it is a body composed of matter, and actually we think that we have knowledge of or about our physical body, but actually not even the best scientists know about it, doesn't know about its purpose and all the functionings that it has, doesn't get to understand it properly. And actually, the function of our physical body is to generate and to condense sexual energy. That is the purpose of us to have a physical body. That is the purpose of us to be in this third dimension. And this energy, the sexual energy, is actually the creative part in us. Our physical body, was created in sex, and through sex, through the wise use of our sexual energy, by practicing the suprasexuality, we have the opportunity to create ourselves or to create ourselves internally. That is to create, the existential bodies of the being that are going to allow us to have presence in the different dimensions of nature, as we learned in lecture number 10, where we are talking about the seven bodies. And what happens? That this condensation, let's say, capacity that has our physical body is now being used by our ego, by our different psychological defects. And that is the reason why we have many diseases. Because every time that a psychological defect manifests in us, can be anger, can be sadness, can be lust, can be laziness, can be anyone. They use that condensed capacity of our physical body in a wrong way. And we, as humanity, we are convinced that happiness lies in pleasure. And for that reason, we give rein to our desires, to satisfy all our desires, to get every time more a pleasure. And we give rein to everything: food, alcohol, consumption of toxic substances, etc. And also we fall into fornication in that search for pleasure. We misuse our sexual energy. We actually give to our psychological defects our creative sexual energy. We are giving them our power in exchange for pleasure. And they use this let me see how this condensation capacity, they use it in a wrong way. Our thoughts are related to all the atoms in our body. And every time we have negative thoughts, actually we are contaminating our atoms. And the constant accumulation of negative thoughts regarding of something, they actually ends up contaminating the molecules. Because you see that when you have lots of negative thoughts regarding something, you start to have wrong emotions related to that. And as we saw in that conference in lecture number 10, we saw that as the thoughts are related to the atoms, the molecules are related to the emotions. And then when we have all these sequence molecules, all these wrong emotions, and all the accumulation of these negative emotions actually ends up, it's like a cancer, it comes like contaminating one and the other, and it ends up contaminating the cells of our own body. And for that reason, we start generating multiple diseases depending on the psychological defect that is manifesting itself. For example, the negative condensation of energy that our defects of anger make, this, as I said, contamination of the atoms, of the molecules, and of our own cells, ends up generating damages to the liver, to the head, to the heart, and we start experiencing those kind of diseases because of the anger. You can actually see that our psychological defects are the causes of our illness. And you can see that, for example, our defects of fornication, of lust, generates different forms of cancer. And our defect, for example, of sadness or depression, generates stomach aches, stomach problems, such as ulcers, etc. And so we can see that how allowing our defects to be the ones that manage our energy has led us to have a terrible relationship with our physical body, and we can see that in the different ailments and diseases that we suffer from. We create defects through fornication every time we expel our sexual energy, and that way we are like giving them all the opportunity to grow, and for that reason they are always going to poison, let's say, our thoughts, are going to poison our emotion, and are going to create all the different illnesses and diseases. And you can see that you can, for example, have or get a medicine to solve a disease. But what happens that you can take this external medicine and you can like cure yourself for a while. But if the psychological defect remains alive inside you, you are going to recreate that disease. It is going to be just, let's say, something like temporary. But if you get to self-observe yourself, if you get to actually see what is the psychological defect that is causing you that disease, then you can like cut the problem in the root, because you are going to eliminate the psychological defect, and then you can actually take in some medication and paying for the karma. Well, we are going to talk about that. And you can actually have a real cure. There was a doctor in the ancient Greece named Hippocrates, and he used to say that before curing someone, you need to ask him if he's willing to give up to the things that made him sick, and that is actually very, very true. And what would be the optimal state of this relationship with our physical body? Well, energy saving, an adequate energy condensation, so we can actually be the ones, or we allow the consciousness to be the one who condense through the practice of the suprasexuality our sexual energy. So an optimal state would be to have a healthy body and to work on the creation of the internal bodies of the being. So how are we going to fix our relationship with our physical body? Well, by working on the 3 factors for consciousness revolution that we have been explaining in this course, and that we talk about in detail in lecture number 17. And these are the psychological death, the spiritual birth, and the sacrifice for humanity. And to fix this relationship, we are going to work on these 3 factors, but especially in the spiritual birth. So we are going to release that negatively condensed energy that is actually a disease, and by working on the psychological death, by knowing what is the defect that is causing that disease, and how are we going to know it? Well, actually, we can ask to our being to show us in the astral world what is the defect that is causing us that specific disease. What do we need to work in? And or we can actually observe what are the defects that move in us when we are like feeling the symptoms of the disease. Actually, that also helps us to know what are these defects. And what is important thing, that once we release that energy, once we work on ourselves, when we are practicing the psychological death, the important thing is to possibly condense this energy, making it ascend through our spine, by practicing the suprasexuality. Actually, when we practice the suprasex, we are like filling ourselves with vital energy. So we are actually healing ourselves. And if we have a specific disease, we can actually dedicate a part of the supersex practice to sending energy to that affected organ. So when we are like concentrated and we are imagining that the energy is ascending, once we are in this point and we are going to mentralize, we can actually, while we mentralize, we can imagine how we send that energy to the organ that is actually sick, and we can imagine how that energy like feels the organ and heals the organ. And if you do this practice, if you try this, you can actually verify by yourself how you can heal yourself, how you can experience the magic of this that I'm explaining. So this is the way to fix the relationship with our physical body. Stop giving our psychological defects our energy for them to misuse it, for them to continue to make us sick, and start making a wise use of our sexual energy. Use it to feel ourselves, use it to heal ourselves, to regenerate our physical body, to regenerate our vital body, and to create our astral body, mental body, causal body, so we can actually have an internal composition. And now let's talk a little about the second type of relationship. This is a relationship with the external world. And what is it? It's a relationship with our peers, with our family, our partners, friends, our colleagues, and all humanity in general. Let me check something. Thank you. Okay. And with the world in which we find ourselves, or our relationship with the work, with the money, with the business, and the relationship with our planet, with the nature, with the environment, with the animals, with the plants, etc. And we actually don't know how to relate to the world. And that is because of our selfishness, because we want things to be as we want them to be. And we want people to behave as we want them to behave. And we want everything to go as planned, and if not, we suffer. And it's because of our selfishness that we have this very wrong relationship with our external world. And we must understand that the function or the objective for the relationship with the external world to exist is for us to develop conscious love through selfless service. That is actually the reason. You can see, like for example, in Bible, how Master Jesus used to say, "Love one another as I have loved you." And with this world, this master actually explained very clearly the reason why we are related to the outside world. So we actually learn to love each other. So we develop love, true love, and actually to learn to put the common good above our selfish interests. And we must know that love is shown in works. And what are the signs that let us know that we have a bad relationship with our external world? Well, actually, all the conflicts that we commonly have in this world with other people, with material things, the enmities, the loneliness, the misery that sometimes we live, the slavery, and the poverty, the pollution that we actually see in the planet. Actually, this is things that we live, all these constant conflicts, and all the general state that we see in society and in this world, they actually are due to our psychological defects, because you know that the exterior is only a reflection of the interior. And as we are so wrongly related with ourselves, with our unconsciousness, for that reason, we live in this egoic situation, all this selfishness. We actually only love ourselves, even though we think that we love others. And for that reason, we don't know how to relate with others. We don't know how to relate with the environment. And for that reason, we live all the conflicts that we constantly live. And we actually have to pay a lot of karma. And some bad situations commonly come to our lives, and it is because we constantly harm others. We constantly do a lot of things in behalf of others, and for that reason, we generate karma, and we need to live hard situations. Now, what would be the optimal state of the relationship with the external world? Well, a state of harmony, that we constantly help others, that we experience freedom, that we actually learn how to develop love. That would be the conscious relationship. But actually, we never or very rarely do something really for the good of others. We usually do things for an indirect gain. Like, for example, when we give, when we do something, let's say, good for others, but we go and post it on Facebook, or we post it on, I don't know, Twitter, or we post it, I don't know, Instagram. And actually, we are not doing that really because of love. Actually, we are being good people just to be admired, to be, respected, etc. And we must understand that we have all this bad relationship with people, with the world, because we always seek for our own benefit. And we must develop love. That would be the optimal state, that we actually learn how to love everyone, not just my family and my friends, but everyone, the whole world. And how can we fix the relationship with the external world? Well, actually, working on the 3 factors for consciousness revolution, but especially in the sacrifice for humanity. Because when we make an effort to help others, we actually are developing true love. And we can help others in many ways. Like, for example, we can do charity, and we can help others with material things, and that is good. But as we have explained in this lecture, what is actually most important is when we help others so they awaken. Because, to give a person something to eat for a few days, when you reflect on this, you can see that it's actually more like available when you give him the knowledge that can radically change his life. Actually, that is like more important. And for this, we need to sacrifice our time so we can teach others how to wake up, so we can share the knowledge that has helped us to awaken, and that way we develop love. And another thing that is important for us to fix the relationship that we have with people, with our work, or with the planet itself, is to sacrifice our psychological defects to fix these bad relationships. So what can we do in this case? If for example, I'm having constantly arguments, issues with a coworker because that person is this or that, or because when he's stressed and he's in a bad temper, and I don't like how he's talking to me, etc. Okay, we have a bad relationship with that person. So what can we do? Well, the recommendation is that we write down all the things that I think that bothers me about that person, all the things that I criticize about that person. And what am I gonna do with this list? Is that I'm going to work on that in myself. I'm going to study each of these defects in my own psychology. I'm going to use that person as a mirror to get to know myself. And if I, for example, think that the person I don't like that person because he's always in a bad mood. Well, when I actually study the situations in which I am in a bad mood, if I actually look for that defect into myself, if I ask myself, sorry, when have I done the same? Actually, when I do this study, I can find the reason of my own psychological defects. Okay, I can find that I'm in a bad mood when I feel stressed, when I feel lonely, when I feel da 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 da, and then I get to understand this and I get to eliminate those psychological defects inside from my interior, and I'm going to release consciousness, I'm going to release wisdom. And what is that going to help me with? Well, actually, I'm going to understand that person better. I'm going to have a better relationship with everyone because I'm going to understand them. I'm going to really see that way. Okay, he's that way. He's doing that because he actually is feeling that way. He's actually it comes from this, it comes from there, and then I understand you. Then I don't have the need to judge you, to criticize you, and I'm not going to get identified with your reactions because I can understand the causes of your reaction. So I'm not going to feel like a victim. I'm not going to feel like, okay, he's in a bad mood and he's like talking this way, and I'm going to get to understand people. And if we do this, actually, we are going to have a better relationship with the external world because we are not going to be identified for all the situations that happens with everyone. I'm going to respect, I'm going to understand, I'm going to learn to forgive because I'm going to see that actually we are all one, that we are like slaves of our psychological defects. That is the magic of the when we work on ourselves. When we actually, instead of going into pride and feel like how he's doing this to me, no, actually I'm going to sacrifice my pride and I'm going to work these details in my own psychology, and I'm going to understand others, and I'm going to help others, and I'm going to develop love. Because if I see someone that is suffering from his situations, from his karmas, from his psychological defects, then something like love is going to be growing inside of me, and I'm going to feel like this impulse to talk that person about the knowledge, to talk about to talk that to that person about the psychological death, about the self-knowledge, about the how to pay for their karmas, etc. And actually, if we do this way, we are going to have better relationships with the external world, with everything. And actually, if we sacrifice for humanity, that we receive in exchange dharma. And with this dharma, that is the inner money, which is love, actually we can pay for our karma, so we stop suffering, so we don't have to pay for the consequences of all our bad actions of the past. We don't need to pay for them with pain, so we don't actually need to go through the hard situations, so we learn. Because if we sacrifice our psychological defects and we release the wisdom and we actually internally pay for that situation, we don't need to live that hard situation. So we are going to transcend that recurrence or that karma. And in that way, we are also going to be fixing a lot of things in the world, like for example, economic karma. We can fix that. A lot of recurrences that are actually going to bring us different hard situations with people in work, etc., we can transcend all that by sacrificing for humanity. And the third type of relationship is a relationship with oneself. That is a relationship with our own being, with our consciousness, with that divine and eternal part in us. This relationship is the most important one, and yet it is the most neglected. We find ourselves so identified with this external world that we forget that within us there is a 3% of consciousness that is actually God in us. That is our divine and eternal part. And that is what we really are. And we forget that this 97% of our essence is trapped in the ego, and that's by eliminating our different negative ways of being, we are going to release it and we are going to rescue all the wisdom about ourselves and about the outside world. And what is the function of us to have a relationship with ourselves, with our own inner being? Well, this relationship with our being exists with the only purpose of reaching self-realization. The objective of being is nothing more than to find happiness. If we actually manage to fix our relationship with our inner being, we are going to see how all the other relationships are going to be fixed, because as within, so without. But what is the current state of our relationship with our being? Well, the actual state is a constant state of lack of inner illumination. You know, many people don't even know what are they doing here. Most people don't even know what the true purpose of existence is, and they wrongly search for pleasure, and this always ends up in more suffering and in more confusion. Actually, you can see that when we don't get a real connection with our consciousness, we always end up like having this or experiencing this existential crisis, like this existential void, that we feel like this emptiness. And many people look to fill this void, this emptiness, by getting material things, by getting or by making good relationships with other people, to having a good partner, to have a good family, to have, I don't know, fame, prestige, and so on. And happens that when they manage to get all that, to have money, to have fame, to have luxuries, to have a good family, to have a good partner, actually they end up experiencing that this void, that this emptiness remain the same, that they cannot get satisfaction. And they actually say that that is because they lack of God in them, inside of them. And this is true, but the problem is that people don't know where to find God, and they wrongly look for God in the exterior. They look for God in a church, they look for God in a book, they look for God in heaven, and they say like heaven, this heaven that we see outside. But they don't know that God is actually inside of them, that God is actually in their unconsciousness, that you can only develop God in yourself when you manage to release your consciousness and to make a wise use of your own energy, and that way you will start experiencing God. But as people don't know that, they look for God in the outside world, they actually go and look for God and they cannot find it, and they like lose all hope, and they fall into drugs, alcohol, suicide, etc. And actually, we have a very bad relationship with our own inner being because we don't know ourselves. What would be the optimal state for this relationship? Well, the optimal state would be to live in a constant state of self-observation and psychological depth, though experiencing this interior livelihood. You know, to experience the results of the inner work. That, for example, we meditate and we experience the results of that meditation, that we can get to concentrate ourselves, that we actually go and we practice spiritual birth and we experience how this energy is actually going inward and upward, and that we go and to the astral world and we can actually communicate with our inner being. That would be the optimal state, to have a constant communication with our being. And how are we going to get that? How are we going to fix our relationship with our inner being? Well, we're practicing the three factors for consciousness revolution, but especially the psychological depth. Because when we get to understand what is the psychological defects, or what are the psychological defects that are leading me to have this bad relationship with myself, and when we get to realize that or those psychological defects are the causes of all our ills and all the evil that is inside of me and that is in the world, and actually we work on them through the psychological depth, we can start to create inside of us like a different relationship with our unconsciousness. We can actually start to climb this stairway to heaven, which is to reunite with our own self. So every time that we work on the psychological depth and we liberate essence and we awaken consciousness, all that consciousness is going to be helping me. So I can release. I say we because it's me and my consciousness. So I can release every time more and more consciousness. And what is important is to have obedience to our own being, to follow our intuition, to apply what we have been learning, and to do what we know that we have to do, and not to obey to our psychological defects. So, if for example I feel, or the defect of laziness is manifesting in me, and is actually I feel in the desire of spending hours in Netflix or in the cell phone or doing stuff that are doesn't worth it, and I know that I must go and do a meditation that is better, and that I'm going to actually make a reflective meditation and eliminate some of my wrong ways of being. If I obey to the psychological defect, actually I am disobeying my own being. But if I reject that desire, if I actually ask for death, for that laziness, and I start doing my meditation, then I am obeying my being. Then I am actually getting every time closer to my own consciousness. And in that way, I'm going to make this relationship to go to its optimal state. And this has been the three relationships and the way how we can fix these relationships. And now, to end this lecture, I want to show you, let me see, this practice. It's very interesting. It is called the, no, it's not this, it's this, the ICE file. And it will help us to understand why we must eliminate a certain way of being. Sometimes we have things in us that we know that we must work on that, but we cannot see like the urgency of actually eliminating from us that wrong way of being. Can it be, for example, the anger? Or can it be the lust or the fornication? Or can it be the depression? Or can it be greed? Or can it be pride? Or can it be whatever? Or can it be like a vice, like say for example the alcohol? And we actually don't understand. We don't. We need like that understanding that take us to make a renunciation, to say, okay, no, I need to work on this. And for this, we must do this practice. It's the ICE file. And what we're going to do is that we're going to see how that that can be like, for example, vice, let's say the alcohol, has generated a bad relationship, first with our physical body, second with others, and third with ourselves, with our inner being. For example, if I'm saying, let's say it's the alcohol, I can make like a list of things, or let me see, it's pornography, or if it's masturbation, whatever. I can make a list of things. Let's say, what damage has this I generated to my physical body? And if it is the alcohol, I can say how the liver, how it has, like it's taking away my health, because I end up with this hangover and whatever. You're going to make your list of all the ways in which the alcohol has damaged your physical body. Second, you're going to make a list and how has it damaged your relationship with other people, how it has led you to loneliness, to have always a bad relationship with your partner, with your kids, with at work, etc. And the third thing is that you are going to see how has it damaged your relationship with yourself, with your consciousness, with your being. And in the case of the alcohol, how it's actually like blocking your own capacity to reflect, your own consciousness, how it like is actually like how can I say, like it's making a direct damage on your energy. So you make this list, and when you make this I file, actually when you get to understand that this psychological defect is actually generating you several problems, then you're going to feel inside, yes, I need to get rid of this. And then you get to the renunciation. Then you actually start studying this defect in the reflective meditation. You start finding all the details that compose this defect, and you start asking for death for everything. You start also to stop doing it, and you start like self-observing yourself with more attention, and actually this way you get out of this psychological defect. So this is the practice, the recommendation that I wanted to give you today, and this has been actually today's lecture. Thank you for watching the video. I want to invite you to next Sunday's lecture. We will be talking about an interesting technique to dissolve the I, that is with the details. And with that technique, we are going to learn how to achieve the scientific chastity, which is the balance of the centers. So, see you next Sunday. Thank you very much for watching the video, and I hope it was helpful for you. If you have any question, you can leave your questions in the chat, and I will be solving any question you have. Thank you very much, and see you next Sunday. Ciao, ciao.